Claire Whitmore had always believed Christmas carried a certain magic lights on Fifth Avenue, soft jazz floating from storefronts, the comforting warmth of cinnamon drifting from bakeries. But that December evening, walking home from her long shift at the event studio near Midtown, the cold hit her harder than usual. It wasn't the New York winter. It was the sense, quiet, sharp, unmistakable, that something in her marriage had cracked. Grant Holloway, her husband of 4 years, had become a stranger. Once, he used to wait for her near the apartment window, waving with that boyish smile that made her heart flutter. Now, he barely looked up from his phone. And lately, he guarded that phone like it contained national secrets. He changed his passcode twice in a week. He took late meetings nearly every night. And when Claire walked into the bedroom, he always turned the screen away. She tried not to spiral. She breathed, slow and steady, doing exactly what her therapist had taught her when her anxiety tried to take over. But the pit in her stomach refused to disappear. When she reached their building on the Upper East Side, Claire paused in the lobby, brushing melted snow from her coat. Grant was upstairs, supposedly. He had texted her once. "Dinner at my parents' house on Christmas Eve. Dress nicely. No please. No smiley face, no warmth. Just an instruction." Something had changed. She just didn't know what yet. Inside the apartment, she found Grant standing near the kitchen island, wearing the navy sweater she bought him last year. He looked perfect, hairstyled, jaw clean-shaven, posture straight. But his eyes held none of the softness she once loved. "You're late," he said flatly. "I stayed to help finish the holiday setup," Claire replied, setting her bag down. "Traffic was rough." He didn't answer. His phone buzzed. His eyes flickered not with irritation, but with panic. He turned away quickly, typing fast. Claire's heartbeat picked up. "Grant," she asked quietly, "is everything okay?" He didn't look at her. "I'm busy. Don't start something tonight." Her chest tightened. She hated that feeling, the fear of confrontation, the fear of being dismissed. She fought the trembling in her hands, inhaling sharply the way her therapist taught her. "I'm not starting anything," she whispered. "I just miss you." 1. Silence. The kind that confirms what 1,000 words never could. Then, the phone buzzed again. Grant snatched it up and walked into the bedroom, closing the door behind him. Claire stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by Christmas decorations she had hung herself. The lights suddenly felt too bright. The apartment too quiet. Her marriage too hollow. She pressed her hands against the counter, forcing her breath steady. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. And whatever it was, she felt in her bones it would reveal itself on Christmas Eve, whether she was ready or not. The next morning, Claire woke to the sound of drawers opening and closing. Grant was already dressed, charcoal suit, polished shoes, hair styled like he was headed to a magazine shoot rather than his family's company. She watched him knot his tie in the mirror, every movement clean and intentional, as if he were rehearsing the life he wanted, one that no longer included her. "Remember," he said without looking at her, "Christmas Eve dinner starts at 7 sharp. My mother wants everyone there early for photos." Claire forced a small, polite smile. "I'll be ready." Grant finally turned toward her. For a second, just a second, she thought he might soften. But his eyes stayed cold. "Wear something tasteful," he added. "Something appropriate for the Holloways." Her throat tightened. Appropriate was his family's favorite word. Appropriate meant expensive. Appropriate meant polished. Appropriate meant not Claire. She watched him leave the apartment with quick, purposeful steps, like a man running late to a life he actually wanted. And for a moment, Claire wondered whether she had become a shadow in her own home. After he left, she sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing her thumb over her palm, a grounding technique she'd learned during one of her worst anxiety episodes. She whispered to herself, "You're okay. Today is just a day. You can get through this." But even the sound of her own voice didn't fully convince her. That afternoon, she rode the subway to Midtown for her shift, doing everything possible to keep her mind from returning to Grant's strange behavior. She focused on tasks, arranging table settings, reviewing lighting cues, communicating with clients. Work, at least, made sense. Work never talked down to her, never judged, never made her feel like she had to earn her right to exist. During her break, She opened her lunchbox and found a handwritten note from her supervisor, Julia. "You did amazing with the Rockefeller event yesterday. Clients loved your concept, proud of you." Claire stared at the message for a long moment. It shouldn't have made her emotional, but it did. Because kindness, even in small amounts, felt like a foreign language in her marriage. She placed the note inside her planner, next to the folded page from Women Who Run with the Wolves she carried everywhere. "If you have lost your way, stand still. Let the wild soul find you again." She wished she knew how to find hers. When her shift ended, Claire changed into a cream-colored sweater dress, modest, classic, safe. She curled her hair, applied soft makeup, and tried to make herself into someone the Holloways might actually approve of. The taxi ride to Grant's parents' townhouse felt endless. Manhattan glimmered with Christmas lights, but the warmth of the city didn't touch her. All she could think about was how she would manage her anxiety in a house full of people who loved making her small. At the gate, a valet opened the car door. "Evening, ma'am. Happy holidays." "Thank you," she whispered. As she walked toward the townhouse entrance, she could hear laughter inside. Loud, confident, exclusive. The Holloway kind of laughter. The door opened before she knocked. It was Margaret Holloway Grant's mother. Tall, elegant, draped in emerald silk and dripping in pearls. She looked at Claire as if she had arrived with dirty shoes. "You're late," Margaret said. It was 6:52. "I'm sorry," Claire replied. "Traffic was..." "No excuses. Come in." Claire stepped inside. The townhouse glowed with gold lighting, polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the kind of wealth that demanded admiration. But the atmosphere was sharp, almost predatory. Before she could remove her coat, Margaret leaned in and whispered, "Try not to embarrass my son tonight. Remember, people are watching." A tremor ran down Claire's spine. Christmas Eve hadn't even begun, and already she felt the storm forming. The Holloway family's townhouse was the kind of place that swallowed people like Claire whole. The ceilings rose high enough to echo every judgmental whisper. Crystal sconces washed the walls with warm gold light. The entire grand room shimmered with luxury antique mirrors, velvet chairs, a 12-foot Christmas tree covered in glass ornaments imported from Italy. Claire stood near the entrance, coat still in her arms, feeling like an outsider at her own husband's family event. Grant's younger sister, Phoebe, approached with a glass of champagne already half gone. "Well, well," she said, eyes scanning Claire's dress. "At least you tried." Tried. The word stung more than it should have. Claire forced a polite smile. "Merry Christmas, Phoebe." Phoebe waved her off. "Mother is stressed. Don't take anything personally." "Actually, maybe do." Claire swallowed hard. Then Grant appeared smiling, confident, looking more alive than he had in months. But the smile wasn't for her. It was for someone standing right behind him. Claire blinked. No, it couldn't be. Sienna Blake, Grant's colleague. The woman Claire suspected for weeks, but never confronted. She stood in a scarlet silk dress that clung to her curves, hair styled in soft Hollywood waves, makeup glowing as though she'd stepped out of a magazine photo shoot. She wasn't dressed for a family dinner, she was dressed to be seen. And Grant had invited her. The world tilted for a moment. "Claire," Grant said, placing a hand casually on Sienna's back. "You remember Sienna? I thought it'd be good for her to join us tonight. She's practically part of the team." Part of the team. The words hit like a slap. Sienna extended her hand, her smile warm but her eyes razor sharp. "Hi, Claire. You look sweet. Sweet. Like a child. Like someone harmless. Like someone easy to dismiss." Claire shook her hand, though her fingers trembled. "Hi, Sienna. I didn't know you were coming." "Oh," Grant insisted, Sienna said lightly. "He said the family loves me." The Holloways listening from across the room nodded and smiled in approval. Claire felt the oxygen thinning. Phoebe slid closer, lowering her voice. "Don't look so surprised. She fits in here. You don't." It took everything in Claire not to crumble. Dinner wasn't for another hour, so guests mingled throughout the living room. Claire attempted to fade into a corner, but there was no escaping the glances, the smirks, the judgment. She heard snippets of conversations. "She's pretty but plain. Sienna has presence. Grant always brings the best to the table." And the worst part, Grant didn't correct them. He didn't defend her. He didn't even stand beside her. Sienna, meanwhile, thrived under the attention. She told exaggerated stories about her work in media, each one earning laughter from the Holloways. Grant looked at her the way a man looks at something he secretly wants, but hasn't yet claimed publicly. Not yet. Claire's chest tightened so strongly she had to excuse herself to the hallway. She inhaled slowly 4 seconds in, hold for 3, 4 seconds out like her therapist coached her. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're okay. You can handle this." But could she? Every moment felt like quicksand. As she leaned against the wall, trying to steady her breath, she overheard voices drifting from the dining room. Grant and Sienna. "I can't wait until tonight's over," Sienna whispered. "Then we don't have to hide anymore." Grant's low chuckle cut through Claire's heart. "Soon," he said. "After the holidays. I'm done pretending." Claire's vision blurred. Her knees weakened. Pretending. Done pretending. Tonight wasn't just a dinner. It was the beginning of the end. And everyone in the Holloway house knew it. Except her. Claire stood frozen in the hallway, her heartbeat thudding so loudly she feared someone might hear it. Grant's words replayed in her mind like a recording she never wanted. "I'm done pretending." The betrayal wasn't subtle anymore. It wasn't guessed, sensed, or suspected. It was spoken aloud by her own husband on Christmas Eve, in the home where she was supposed to belong. She steadied herself against the wall, letting the cool marble calm the heat rising in her chest. Her anxiety pressed hard against her ribcage, threatening to spiral, but she forced herself to breathe. "You cannot fall apart here. Not in front of them." When she walked back into the living room, she caught the tail end of a conversation. Margaret Holloway, tall and regal in emerald silk, stood with 2 of her society friends. "I've always said," Margaret declared, not bothering to lower her voice, "some women marry above their station, and it shows." Claire knew exactly who the comment was about. The women turned, smiling politely at Claire, thin smiles that felt like knives. "Claire, dear," one said, "love your dress. It's simple. Simple. Sweet." Tried. Every word tonight seemed designed to push her an inch lower. "Thank you," Claire whispered, though her voice barely came out. Margaret's eyes flicked over her appearance again before she added, "Next year we may have a more polished look at the table." She glanced toward Sienna, who laughed delicately. Grant, standing beside Sienna, didn't even pretend to be bothered. Claire felt herself drenched in humiliation, but she stiffened her spine. She would not collapse. Not yet. At 7 sharp, the butler announced dinner. Everyone filed into the grand dining room with its long mahogany table, towering candelabras, and immaculate place settings, 24-karat gold-rimmed plates, crystal wine glasses, linen napkins folded into Christmas roses. Claire took the seat assigned to her. Not beside her husband. Not even near him. She was placed at the very end of the table between 2 distant cousins who barely knew her and far from the center where Grant and Sienna sat, laughing quietly, a pair already. Margaret raised a glass. To family, to refinement, to excellence. Claire lifted her glass with trembling fingers. As the appetizers were served, Phoebe leaned over, her voice dripping with mischief. "I hope you didn't help with any of the food, Claire. Last year's dessert was memorable." It wasn't memorable. It was the first time Claire had baked something for the family. They mocked it until she cried in the bathroom. Sienna smirked from across the table. "Oh, I'm sure she's improved." The tone suggested otherwise. Grant didn't defend her. He didn't glance her way. He didn't acknowledge her existence. But the real humiliation came when Margaret announced casually, "Sienna, dear, you absolutely must join our family trip next spring. You're practically one of us already." Claire's fork slipped from her hand and clattered on her plate. The room fell silent. Grant looked at her with irritation, not concern. "Claire," he snapped, "can you not make a scene for once?" Her throat tightened. "It just slipped." "Everything slips with you," Margaret said sharply. "Control yourself." Laughter rippled through the table, soft, cruel, controlled. Claire blinked, fighting the sting in her eyes. She would not cry. Not here. Not in front of Sienna. But as she swallowed hard, steadying her breath, Sienna leaned in toward Grant, whispering something that made him smile. A private smile. A smile she hadn't seen from him in months. The humiliation was complete. Claire sat perfectly still at the end of the long table, isolated, ignored, and slowly breaking. And the night, God help her, had only just begun. Dinner continued like a slow, merciless unraveling. Claire sat at the far end of the table, barely visible beneath the golden glow of the chandelier, while conversation flowed freely around everyone but her. Every laugh, every clink of glasses, every sideways glance reinforced the same message: you don't belong here. She tried to eat, but the food tasted like ash. Her hands trembled each time she raised her fork. Her breaths came shallow, controlled only by sheer willpower. She focused on the napkin in her lap, smoothing the fabric over and over as if the repetition might anchor her. But nothing anchored her tonight. At the center of the table, Sienna thrived. She spoke with flawless composure, telling stories of glamorous media events, elite fundraisers, celebrity interviews. Her voice carried easily through the room, confident, warm, practiced. And every time she said something, Grant leaned closer, giving her his full attention. Claire watched them like an outsider observing a life she used to live. Then dessert was served. A lavish, multi-layered gingerbread cake, baked by Sienna. Margaret clapped softly. "Oh, Sienna, darling, you outdid yourself. This is spectacular." Claire froze. She had always been the one who baked for the Holloways. She loved baking because it was the only moment during holidays when she felt useful, maybe even valued. Not anymore. Sienna glanced down the table at Claire. "Oh, I didn't mean to step on your tradition," she said sweetly. "I just thought, why not elevate it a bit?" A soft ripple of laughter. Claire's stomach twisted. She placed her fork down, unable to fight the nausea rising inside her. "You okay down there?" Phoebe asked, smirking. "You look a little pale. Maybe the pressure's too much." Before Claire could respond, Margaret added, "Some women are simply not wired for this lifestyle." The chandelier light blurred as tears threatened to spill. She blinked them back furiously. "Do not cry. Not here. Not in front of them." She straightened her posture, refusing to give them the satisfaction. But the universe, cruel in timing, delivered another blow. Sienna reached over, resting her hand lightly on Grant's arm. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what? For choosing her? For humiliating Claire? For replacing his wife in front of everyone?" Grant didn't remove her hand. Instead, he smiled. That smile, private, intimate, was the knife. Claire felt something inside her tear. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly, painfully, like fabric ripping under strain. Her breath hitched. She excused herself from the table before the panic could swallow her whole. Claire slipped down the hallway toward the bathroom, her heels clicking softly against the marble. She closed the door behind her, turned the lock, and braced her palms against the sink. Her reflection stared back, wide eyes, flushed cheeks, trembling lips. A woman trying very hard not to fall apart. "This is not happening," she whispered. "This cannot be my life." Her chest tightened painfully. Her breaths came sharp, uneven. The edges of her vision dimmed. A panic attack. Not now. Not here. She gripped the sink harder, counting the tiles on the floor, forcing herself to focus. 1 tile. 2. 3. Breathe. Don't faint. Don't break. Don't let them win. After nearly 2 minutes of fighting her own lungs, the tightness loosened. Her heartbeat slowed. She wiped her eyes carefully, no evidence allowed. Then she reapplied her lip gloss, fixed her hair, lifted her chin. She refused to walk back out there looking defeated. But as she opened the door to return to the dining room, she heard voices drifting from the adjacent hallway. "Grant and Margaret. Are you going to tell her?" his mother whispered. "She'll find out soon enough," Grant replied. "After tonight, I'm done pretending." Claire's blood turned to ice. There it was again. Pretending. Tonight wasn't humiliation by accident. It was premeditated. And Claire had no idea what was coming next. Claire lingered in the dim hallway outside the bathroom, her back pressed against the cold wall, trying to absorb what she'd overheard. Done pretending. The words clung to her like poison. She felt the sting behind her eyes again, but she refused to let the tears win. She straightened her spine and walked back toward the dining room, determined to gather herself before re-entering the lion's den. But halfway there, she noticed something strange. Margaret, Phoebe, and two aunts whispering urgently around the kitchen island. Their huddled posture, the glances over shoulders, the sharp whispers, it sent a chill through her. She slowed her steps, staying out of sight. Then she heard it. "Don't forget," Margaret said, voice crisp. "Be ready when I give the signal." Everything must look like it came from her. Phoebe giggled. "Poor thing won't know what hit her." One of the aunts asked. "And Grant agrees. He's tired of carrying dead weight," Margaret replied. "We are simply expediting what should have happened already." Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Dead weight. Expediting. Signal. They weren't just humiliating her. They were planning something. And she was the target. She forced herself to keep walking so they wouldn't notice she'd heard anything. As she stepped back into the dining room, the lights seemed harsher than before. The laughter darker. The air thicker. Sienna was now at the piano near the Christmas tree, playing Silent Night as if she were auditioning for a holiday movie. Grant stood beside her, leaning against the instrument like it belonged to them. Their silhouettes, soft lighting, shared smiles, looked like a promotional poster for a life she wasn't part of. A cousin approached Claire with a pitying smile. "You okay? You looked overwhelmed earlier." Claire forced a polite nod. "Just needed air. Understandable." "Big night," the cousin said casually, before adding, "A lot's about to change for the family, I heard." Claire's stomach tightened. "What kind of changes?" "Oh, I'm sure you'll find out soon." The cousin walked away before Claire could ask more. The room began to feel smaller, closing in on her. Her fingertips tingled. Her breath shortened again. She counted silently 1, 2, 3 to control the rising panic. But then the butler entered the dining room with urgency. "Mrs. Holloway," he whispered, "we have an issue in the kitchen." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "What kind of issue?" The butler hesitated. "It appears one of the dishes is burning. The staff said the oven temperature was reset." Margaret gasped dramatically, loud enough for the whole room. "What? Impossible. Claire, did you touch anything in my kitchen?" Every head turned toward Claire. Her heart dropped. The trap. She recognized it instantly. "No," Claire said firmly. "I haven't been in the kitchen." Phoebe crossed her arms. "But you helped earlier, right?" "I only arranged place cards," Claire replied. "I didn't go near the oven." Margaret stepped closer, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "The staff said someone tampered with the temperature. And since they know better, who else could it be?" Sienna rose from the piano, eyes wide with faux concern. "Maybe Claire was just trying to help and made a mistake. We shouldn't judge too harshly." The room erupted with murmurs, quiet, poisonous murmurs. Grant finally spoke. "Claire, did you ruin the dish?" She stared at him, hurt pouring through her veins like ice. "Grant, no, I would never." "She's nervous," Phoebe whispered loudly. "Look at her hands shaking." "Long." Claire forced her trembling fingers still. "I did nothing." Margaret's voice boomed. "You embarrassed us last Christmas. You're doing it again. This is exactly why." She stopped. Her eyes flicked toward the kitchen door. The signal. This wasn't an accident. This was their plan all along. And Claire was standing in the center of their stage, framed perfectly for destruction. The dining room grew eerily quiet, the kind of silence where every heartbeat felt amplified. Claire stood near the end of the long table, her fingertips cold, her breath trapped somewhere between her chest and throat. Margaret Holloway's gaze locked on her like a spotlight, full of accusation and triumph. "This," Margaret declared, sweeping her arm toward the kitchen, "is exactly what we feared would happen." A murmur rippled through the guests. Claire lifted her chin. "I didn't touch the oven." But her voice was a thread, thin, fragile, easily dismissed. Margaret pressed a hand dramatically against her chest. "Do you know how many people warned us? How many said Grant needed someone who understood refinement, responsibility, control?" Claire's breath caught. Control. That was the word people used when they accused you of being unstable. She recognized the setup now clear as day. Sienna stepped closer, hands folded delicately in front of her. "Maybe Claire was overwhelmed," she said sweetly. "It happens. Especially during the holidays." "Ah." The implication hung in the air like smoke. Grant exhaled sharply, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "She's been off lately." Those words stabbed deeper than any insult. Off. Unstable. Not well. Grant was laying the groundwork, painting her as someone who couldn't be trusted, someone who made mistakes because she wasn't mentally strong enough. Claire felt the walls closing in. "I'm fine," she forced out. "I'm not overwhelmed, and I didn't sabotage anything." Phoebe laughed. "Sabotage? Who said sabotage?" "That's a very guilty-sounding word, Claire." Her pulse spiked. These people were shark slow, patient, precise. Margaret moved toward the butler. "Bring the dish," she ordered. Within minutes, 2 staff members carried in a charred pan, thick smoke trailing behind it. The guests coughed, fanning the air as the burnt smell filled the room. Margaret gestured dramatically. "This is what happens when someone who doesn't know what they're doing interferes." "Ma." Claire shook her head. "I didn't." Sienna stepped in front of her, a soft hand resting on Claire's arm. "It's okay," she whispered. "You don't have to explain." Claire pulled her arm back as if burned. "Don't touch me." Gasps erupted around them. Grant's expression hardened, his jaw clenching. "Claire," he said through his teeth, "you're embarrassing yourself." "You're letting them lie," she whispered. He ignored her. Margaret turned to the guests. "I think we all know what's happening here. Claire has been under emotional strain. We've tried to support her, but—" Claire felt her stomach tighten painfully. This was it. This was the narrative they wanted. Claire was the unstable wife. The burden. The problem. "Stop," Claire said louder now. "I am not unstable." But again, her voice trembled, and the moment it trembled, she saw the validation in their eyes. Aunt Delia nodded sympathetically. It must be so hard for her. Poor thing. Poor thing. Another knife. Claire's eyes burned, but she kept the tears from falling. She would not cry in front of them. She would not break for their entertainment. But Sienna wasn't done. She stepped beside Grant, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe she just needs rest," she said. "These episodes are—" "Episodes?" Claire snapped. "What episodes?" Sienna blinked innocently. "Oh, I thought that's what Grant said." Grant looked away. The world tilted. Margaret clapped her hands once. "Enough. It's clear tonight is too much for her. Claire dear, why don't you step outside and get some air?" It wasn't a suggestion. It was an exile. Everyone stared, waiting, judging. Grant wouldn't look at her. Sienna's lips curved subtle, victorious. Margaret stood tall, satisfied with the destruction she orchestrated. Claire swallowed hard, lifted her chin, and walked toward the door. Not because they told her to, but because staying any longer would destroy what little strength she had left. And somewhere deep down beneath the humiliation, beneath the fear, Claire felt something stirring. A spark. She didn't know it yet, but stepping out that door was the moment her comeback began. The cold struck Claire the moment she stepped outside. It wasn't the gentle winter chill of holiday movies. It was the kind that cut straight through fabric and bone. Snow drifted lazily from the sky, settling in her hair, her lashes, her breath. The Holloway townhouse glowed behind her like a golden palace she had been cast out of. For a moment, she simply stood there on the stone steps, arms wrapped around herself, fighting the sting in her chest. Inside, laughter erupted again. They had already moved on her humiliation, nothing more than entertainment between courses. She descended the steps slowly, heels slipping slightly on the icy pavement. Her vision blurred with unshed tears, but she refused to let them spill. Not here. Not because of them. She reached the gate and grasped the iron bars to steady herself. The winter air sliced at her lungs. Her pulse throbbed in her temples. She didn't know where to go, only that she couldn't stay another second near that house. A sudden flash of movement caught her eye. The townhouse door opened again. Footsteps. Claire froze. It was Grant. He stepped into the cold without even grabbing a coat, jaw clenched, irritation carved deep into his features. "Claire," he snapped, striding toward her. "What is wrong with you tonight?" She stared at him, disbelief tightening her throat. "What's wrong with me?" "Grant, your family humiliated me." "You humiliated me," he scoffed. "You overreacted again." Her eyes burned. "I didn't do anything." "You ruined the dish," he retorted. "And then you made a scene." "I didn't touch the oven," she insisted. "Your mother is lying." Grant's voice dropped to a cold, deliberate whisper. "My mother doesn't lie. But you. You've been unpredictable for months. There it was. The setup. The character assassination he'd been building all night. Claire's lips parted in horror. You're trying to make me look unstable. Grant didn't deny it. Instead, he rubbed his forehead. Just go home, Claire. We'll talk later. 1. Go home? You're staying? He nodded without hesitation. My family needs me, and Sienna, she's helping with the rest of the dinner. Her heart cracked again, sharper this time. He was choosing Sienna. Choosing them. Choosing to let his wife freeze outside while he dined with the woman he planned to replace her with. You're unbelievable, she whispered. No, he replied, taking a step closer, voice low and patronizing. I'm realistic. You aren't handling things well, Claire, and everyone sees it. Tonight only confirmed what we've been worried about. We? She repeated, voice trembling. So this was planned. He didn't answer. That was enough. For the first time that night, Claire didn't back down. She didn't whisper. She didn't swallow her truth. You want to get rid of me, she said, tears finally slipping free. Just say it. Grant didn't soften. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Instead, he delivered the sentence that would break her cleanly in half. I want someone who doesn't drag me down. The wind punched the breath from her lungs. The world tilted. Her knees weakened. But Claire held on to the gate, refusing to collapse in front of him. Grant exhaled, annoyed. I can't do this right now. Go home. Then, without apology, without hesitation, he turned his back and walked inside to finish Christmas Eve with his mistress. As the door shut behind him, sealing her out completely, a sob escaped her, a quiet, broken sound swallowed by the snow. She didn't know where she would go next. She didn't know how she would survive the humiliation, the betrayal, the cold. But fate was already shifting, because somewhere down the street, headlights pierced through the snowfall, a sleek black Mercedes slowing as it approached her. Inside sat the last person the Holloways ever expected, and the only person who could pull Claire back from the edge. The black Mercedes rolled to a slow stop beside the sidewalk, its headlights casting long white beams through the drifting snow. Claire wiped her tears quickly, trying to steady her breathing. She didn't want anyone stranger or not to see her like this. But when the tinted window lowered, her breath caught in her throat. Claire? The voice was warm, deep, familiar in a way that struck straight to the center of her breaking heart. Harrison Whitmore. Her father. She hadn't seen him in nearly a year. He lived a quiet life away from the noise of Manhattan, deliberately avoiding the world that once worshipped him, the tech empire he built, the billions he earned, the spotlight he walked away from. And tonight, at the exact moment she collapsed, he appeared like a lifeline thrown into a frozen sea. Claire blinked, stunned. Dad? What? How are you here? Harrison stepped out of the car, ignoring the snow soaking into the shoulders of his midnight blue coat. He crossed the distance in 3 powerful strides and wrapped an arm around her before she could crumble. I was on my way to surprise you, he said softly, voice tight with concern. Then I saw you standing in the cold. What happened? The warmth of his presence, the steadiness in his voice, it broke something inside her. For the first time all night, she let herself lean on someone who wouldn't use it against her. Claire pressed a hand to her trembling lips. They humiliated me, Dad. All of them. Grant, he. Her voice cracked. It's okay, Harrison murmured, pulling her closer. You can tell me everything. You're safe now. Safe. The word melted the last of her defenses. He invited his mistress. Claire choked out. They made fun of me. They said I wasn't good enough. They said I ruined the food. She couldn't continue. She folded into her father's chest, sobs muffled against his coat. Harrison closed his eyes once, slowly, and when he opened them again, they were no longer soft. They were sharp, cold, lethal. Get in the car, he said quietly. Claire hesitated. Dad, Claire, he said, cupping her shaking shoulders. I will not let you stand out here 1 second longer, not after what they did. She nodded, letting him guide her into the warm leather interior. The car door shut with a heavy, comforting thud, shutting out the cold and the Holloways. Harrison slid into the seat beside her and signaled the driver. Take us to the Ritz, he ordered. Private entrance. Claire wiped her cheeks. The Ritz? Dad. That's... "Where you belong tonight," he said simply. She stared at him, exhausted, confused. "Why didn't you tell me you were in the city? Why didn't you tell me you were coming to dinner?" Harrison exhaled. "I wasn't invited. Your husband made sure of that." Her stomach twisted. "Grant? I reached out last week," Harrison said, jaw tightening. "He told me the Holloways wanted a small, private family gathering. Said you would be overwhelmed if too many people came." Claire's blood ran cold. That was the lie Grant told her therapist too. Her father continued, voice low with fury. "He didn't want me there because he didn't want me to see how they treat you." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't realize it was that bad until tonight." "It's worse than bad," Harrison said. "It's calculated." Claire swallowed hard. She had suspected it, but hearing her father say it made everything real. "You listen to me," Harrison said, shifting closer. "Nothing about tonight was your fault. Nothing. They planned this to corner you, to make you doubt yourself, to make you easy to push aside." Her breath trembled. "Why?" Harrison held her gaze. "Because they underestimated you." The car glided through the city, passing rows of glittering holiday lights. For the first time all night, the world didn't feel suffocating. It felt clearer. Harrison reached over and took her hand. "I'm here now," he said softly. "And I'm not leaving again." Claire exhaled shakily, leaning back against the seat. For the first time in hours, maybe in months, she felt something that had almost disappeared from her life. Hope. The Mercedes glided through Manhattan's quiet Christmas Eve streets, the city glowing with festive lights while Claire rested her forehead lightly against the window. Snowflakes streaked across the glass, melting instantly, like fragile moments that never got a chance to stay. Her breathing had steadied, but a hollow ache remained deep, bruising, impossible to ignore. Harrison watched her for a moment before speaking, his voice low. "Claire, I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner." "When?" She shook her head. "Dad, you didn't know." "I should have known," he insisted. "I should have seen what was happening. Grant has been isolating you for months." The truth of those words settled in her chest. She had been isolated. Slowly, subtly. Made to doubt her own perceptions. Cut off from friends, from family, from support. "Tonight ends that," Harrison said firmly. "I won't let them gaslight you another day." She let out a shaky breath. "I just wanted a normal Christmas. That's all." Harrison placed a steady hand over hers. "You deserve more than normal. You deserve respect. Safety. Love." The limo eased to a stop at the side entrance of the Ritz-Carlton. Warm light spilled from the awning, coating the snow-dusted sidewalk in gold. A doorman opened the car door with a respectful nod, clearly recognizing Harrison. Few people didn't. "Welcome back, Mr. Whitmore." Claire blinked. "They know you?" Harrison smiled faintly. "I've hosted a few galas here." "Who?" "A few." Her father's understatement never failed to surprise her. Inside, the hotel lobby glowed with soft luxury marble floors, towering white poinsettias, a gleaming chandelier shaped like cascading snowflakes. It was peaceful, far from the chaos she'd escaped. Claire inhaled deeply, letting the warmth seep into her frozen bones. Harrison led her toward the private elevators. "I booked the penthouse earlier today. Thought you might like a quiet place to relax before Christmas morning." "Lun." She stared at him. "Dad, that's too much." "No," he said gently. "Grant is too much. What happened tonight is too much. This," he gestured toward the elevator, "is simply me taking care of my daughter." Claire swallowed the lump in her throat. When they entered the penthouse, the soft lights revealed a breathtaking space floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, a crackling fireplace, a Christmas tree decorated in silver and white. But what made her breath hitch wasn't the luxury. It was the care. Harrison had arranged gifts beneath the tree. A cozy blanket draped over the couch, a small plate of cookies and hot chocolate waiting on the counter. Everything about the space whispered, "I wanted you to feel safe." Her father stepped inside behind her. "I had staff prepare things earlier. I wanted it to feel like home." Claire turned, tears welling again, this time not from pain, but from gratitude so deep it hurt. "Thank you," she whispered. Harrison pulled her gently into a hug. "You don't have to thank me. I'm your father." She closed her eyes, letting the truth settle. "You're not staying with him," Harrison said suddenly, voice steady. Not after tonight. Claire stiffened. Dad, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what you deserve. A man who humiliates you publicly doesn't deserve one more second of your loyalty. She lowered her gaze. I don't know if I'm strong enough to leave. Harrison tilted her chin up. You survived tonight. That makes you stronger than you think. A tear slipped down her cheek. What if he tries to twist everything? What if he tells everyone I'm unstable? Harrison's jaw tensed. He won't get the chance. She blinked. What do you mean? Her father stepped toward the window, looking out at the city. I didn't come tonight just to comfort you. I came because I learned something. Something about Grant and his family. Claire's breath caught. What did you find out? Harrison turned back, his expression deadly calm. The expression of a man who built an empire and knew exactly how to destroy one. Tomorrow, he said, the Holloway's entire world will collapse. Claire stared at him, stunned. Tonight, she had been humiliated. Tomorrow, they would learn who she really was. Claire stared at her father, her pulse quickening. Harrison Whitmore was not a man who spoke in threats. When he said a world would collapse, it meant he already had the matches and the gasoline ready. The Holloways had no idea who they had provoked. Dad, she whispered, tension coiling in her chest. What do you mean their world will collapse? Harrison walked slowly toward the fireplace, the flames reflecting in his eyes. For a moment, he didn't speak. He was choosing his words not out of fear, but precision. I've been investigating them for weeks, he finally said. Before tonight. Before I even knew how they were treating you. Something about Grant always felt wrong. Claire sat on the edge of the couch, fingers twisting the blanket nervously. Investigating. Why would you be doing that? Because every time I tried to see you, Harrison said softly, there was an excuse. You were busy. You were tired. You didn't want visitors. But I know you, Claire. You've never pushed me away, not once in your life. So I started looking deeper. The room felt heavier. What did you find? She asked. Harrison exhaled slowly, then faced her fully. The Holloways are in financial trouble so severe they've been hiding it from their own board. Grant's failing projects, his mismanaged assets, and, his voice sharpened, his relationship with Sienna are all tied into shady dealings. Claire's breath hitched. Sienna? She's involved? Oh, yes. Harrison nodded grimly. She's been leaking selective information to hurt competitors' information Grant helped her obtain. They thought they were being clever, but what they're doing is illegal. A chill ran down Claire's spine. And Margaret, she whispered. Harrison's expression darkened. She's been covering for them. Smoothing things over. Threatening staff. She's far more ruthless than she lets on. Claire pressed a hand to her mouth. And you have proof? Harrison reached into his coat and pulled out a sleek black folder, heavy, expensive, unmistakably serious. I have everything, he said. Emails, financial reports, surveillance footage, even voice recordings. Claire felt the room blur for a moment. Her humiliation tonight had come at the hands of people who were rotting from the inside. But why tell me now? She asked in a whisper. Why on Christmas Eve? Because, he said gently, I needed you to see who they are before I bring them down. I needed you to know, this isn't your failure, Claire. You didn't lose Grant. You escaped him. The words hit her so deeply she felt the air punch out of her lungs. Harrison stepped closer and took her hands, grounding her. You are not weak. You are not unstable. You are not the problem. They manipulated you, gaslit you, tried to break you so you wouldn't see the truth. Then, Claire's eyes brimmed this time not with humiliation, but with the overwhelming relief of finally being believed. Dad, she whispered, what happens next? Harrison's voice lowered. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with the board of Holloway Capital. The documents will be released. Federal investigators will be alerted. By noon, Grant's name will be plastered across every financial publication. Claire inhaled sharply. And Margaret? She asked. She'll be publicly tied to the cover-up, he said. Her reputation in every social circle she values will be gone. Claire tried to absorb everything, her mind racing between shock and clarity. They hurt you, Harrison said calmly. They tried to break you, and they believed you had no one. His voice deepened. They were wrong. Claire closed her eyes, letting the truth settle into her bones. For so long, she had felt powerless, small, insignificant, silenced. But now? Now she had someone in her corner with enough power to shake Manhattan. When she opened her eyes, something inside her had changed. A steadiness, a fire. And Harrison saw it too. "That's my girl," he murmured. Claire slept only a few hours in the Ritz-Carlton penthouse, drifting in and out of shallow dreams, the kind where humiliation replayed itself in blurry loops. Each time she woke, the ache returned. The burned dish, the laughter, Grant's cold stare, Sienna's triumphant smile. But when she finally stepped out of bed the next morning, Manhattan was washed in soft winter light. Snow blanketed the city, muting the usual chaos. For the first time in months, she didn't feel dread when she opened her eyes. Harrison had left a note on the nightstand in his precise handwriting. "Breakfast is on the table. Meeting begins at 10. I want you there." "Dad." Claire took a deep breath. He wanted her there. Not hidden. Not silenced. Zane. She wrapped herself in the robe the hotel provided, walked to the dining area, and stopped. On the table sat a flawless breakfast spread: croissants, berries, warm oatmeal, with cinnamon food she actually liked. Next to it lay a small wrapped box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet engraved with one word: enough. Her eyes welled instantly. Harrison always knew how to speak in quiet gestures. She placed it on her wrist. Enough humiliation. Enough pretending. Enough being small. She was done. At 9:45, she dressed in a simple, elegant ivory sweater and tailored trousers. No makeup except a touch of concealer. She didn't want armor. She wanted truth. Harrison met her near the private elevator, dressed in a dark overcoat, expression calm but steeled. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." "Good," he said, "because they won't be." The car ride to the Holloway headquarters was silent except for the city's muffled hum beneath layers of snow. When they arrived, Harrison guided her through the back private entrance, security already expecting him. Claire had been here only once before, years ago, when she and Grant were first dating. Back then, everything felt intimidating, but exciting. Today, the building felt cold, towering glass hiding rotten foundations. As the elevator rose, Claire's hands trembled slightly. Harrison noticed. "You don't have to speak," he assured her. "Just be present." "I want to speak," she whispered. "I want to hear what they say when the mask comes off." Harrison looked at her with a pride she hadn't seen in years. The elevator opened into the executive boardroom, a massive space with sweeping skyline views. A long glass table dominated the room, surrounded by high-backed leather chairs. Grant was already there. He turned when he heard footsteps, and froze. "Claire," he said, stunned. "What are you doing here?" She held his gaze. "That's what I came to find out." Grant's tie was crooked, hair slightly disheveled, dark circles visible under his eyes. It was clear he hadn't slept either, but for very different reasons. Before he could respond, the board members entered one by one, shaking Harrison's hand with a level of respect Grant had never commanded. Margaret arrived last, wrapped in a fur coat, annoyance already simmering. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. "Why are you here, Claire?" "For transparency," Harrison said coolly. Margaret stiffened when she realized who he was. "You're—" "Yes," Harrison cut in. "I'm Claire's father, and today, I'm here to address your family's misconduct." Grant's face paled. "You can't just walk in here and—" "I can," Harrison said, "because your father's company accepted investments from mine. And as of this morning, I've initiated a full audit." Shock rippled through the room. "You're bluffing," Margaret hissed. Harrison opened the black folder and placed it on the glass table. "I don't bluff." The boardroom fell into a chilling silence. Grant swallowed hard, glancing between his wife, who no longer looked broken, and the man who had just upended their world. Then Claire spoke, her voice steady. "You tried to make me feel crazy. You tried to destroy me. But you forgot who my father is." Harrison rested a hand gently on her back. Margaret exhaled sharply. For the first time ever, the Holloways were afraid. Silence seized the boardroom like a sudden winter freeze. Grant stood stiffly at the head of the glass table, his confidence dissolving with every second Harrison Whitmore remained in the room. Margaret's gloved hands clenched around her designer handbag, knuckles whitening. The other board members shuffled uneasily, exchanging wary glances. Harrison opened the black folder with meticulous calm, as though he were unveiling nothing more than an agenda when in reality, he was lighting the fuse to the Holloway dynasty. "Let's begin," he said, sliding documents across the table. Grant snatched one, eyes scanning it quickly, then stopping abruptly. His face drained of color. This is private financial data," he stammered. "How did you get—" "This information is legally obtained," Harrison replied. "You were careless, sloppy, and your mistress was even sloppier." The board members stiffened. "His what?" one of them whispered. Margaret shot Grant a raised brow, half fury, half disbelief. "Grant, please tell me you didn't." "Mother, it's not what," Grant sputtered. But Harrison continued, completely unbothered. "Your son has been sharing internal files with Miss Sienna Blake for nearly 8 months. Those files were then used to manipulate market movements for her personal gain." One board member gasped. Another muttered, "This is a lawsuit waiting to happen." Harrison looked directly at Grant. "You handed your mistress the keys to your company's downfall. And she used them." Claire sat quietly, watching Grant crumble in real time. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar when she looked at him clarity. She finally saw him not as the man she married, but as the man he truly was. Weak, reckless, selfish. Margaret lunged toward the documents. "This can't be true." Harrison's voice stayed level. "Page 3 contains the recorded phone call between your son and Miss Blake from 2 weeks ago. Page 5 contains the transaction logs. Page 9 lists the shell accounts. Would you like to hear the recording?" Margaret stopped mid-breath. Grant's face twisted. "This is a hostile ambush." "No," Harrison replied. "This is accountability." Grant turned toward Claire, desperation sparking in his eyes. "Claire, tell them something. Tell them I'm not the monster he's painting me to be." Claire looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, with devastating calm, "You humiliated me in front of your entire family last night. You let them tear me apart. And now you want me to save you?" Grant's mouth opened, but no words came out. Margaret slammed her hands on the table. "This is outrageous. You had no right to bring her here, Harrison." "I had every right," he replied. "Your family has been subjecting my daughter to emotional abuse for years. You orchestrated a public humiliation last night to push her out of the marriage before your scandal broke." More gasps shook the room. One board member stood. "Is this true, Mrs. Holloway?" Margaret faltered for the first time. I don't know what he's talking about. Claire has always been sensitive." Harrison's cold smile answered her lie. "Sensitive is not a diagnosis, but trying to fabricate one to control her is a crime." Claire felt every eye shift to her. But she didn't shrink. Instead, she lifted her chin. "I'm not unstable," she said clearly. "I'm not emotional. I'm not difficult. I'm a woman who has been manipulated, gaslit, and blamed by people who never wanted me to have a voice." Her voice trembled, but from strength, not weakness. "And I'm done being quiet." Margaret took a step back, visibly shaken. Grant ran a hand through his hair, panic consuming him. The board members exchanged looks not of sympathy, but of betrayal toward the Holloway family. Harrison closed the folder. "Effective immediately," he said. "I'm calling for a temporary corporate freeze, a full federal investigation, and an emergency leadership vote." Grant's breath hitched. Margaret whispered, No, this can't be happening." Claire turned toward the window, Manhattan stretching out before her in glittering lines. For years, she felt trapped in a world that minimized her. Now, she was watching that world fall at her feet. And for the first time, it wasn't her breaking. It was them. The boardroom had never been so quiet. The tension was thick, electric, trembling at the edges like a live wire. Grant's composure, once his greatest asset, had shattered completely. His shoulders slumped, his jaw clenched, eyes darting across the room in frantic attempts to regain control. But control was no longer his. "Let's be reasonable," Grant said finally, forcing a smile that resembled a grimace. "We're family here. We can work this out privately." Harrison didn't even blink. "Your definition of family," he said, "is vastly different from mine." Margaret's breath caught. "Harrison, you're blowing this out of proportion." "No," Claire cut in, her voice clear and steady. That's what you did. For years. Every head turned toward her. She had never spoken loudly in this room, never demanded to be heard. But now she stood, palms pressed gently against the glossy glass table, eyes locked on Margaret. You called me unstable, Claire said. You called me unfit for your son. You told me I wasn't worthy of this family. Margaret stiffened. Claire, this is inappropriate. No, Claire repeated, louder. What's inappropriate is the way you spoke to me. The way you humiliated me. The way you convinced Grant that undermining me was normal. Grant opened his mouth. Claire. She raised her hand, stopping him instantly. You wanted me quiet, easily manipulated. Grateful for scraps of attention. Last night, you all made sure I understood exactly how little you thought of me. Her throat tightened, but she refused to let it stop her. But here's the thing, she said. Last night, for the first time, I realized you were wrong about me. All of you. Phoebe, standing near the window, rolled her eyes. Claire didn't even look at her. She looked directly at Grant. You weren't protecting me, she said. You were controlling me. Every missed family visit? Every plan that didn't go through? Every time you said I was too anxious or too emotional? Those were excuses. Your excuses. And I believed them because I thought you were my partner. Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. I was wrong. Grant's eyes widened shock, guilt, fear, all tangled together. But Claire wasn't finished. You said I dragged you down, she said. You said I made you look bad. But the truth is, I spent years holding you together, supporting you, believing in you. And last night, when you threw me to the wolves, I finally saw who you were without me. Harrison's jaw tightened with pride. The board members watched with open fascination. This was no longer a business meeting. This was an unveiling. Claire continued, her voice gaining strength. You humiliated your wife in front of your mistress. You destroyed our marriage long before I walked out of that house. And now your company is collapsing because you handed confidential data to a woman who used you. A soft murmur spread across the room. Grant shot to his feet. That's not fair. It's exactly fair, Claire said. You manipulated me, then turned around and let someone else manipulate you. Margaret's voice broke. Claire, please. No, Claire repeated. You don't get to stop me now. She inhaled deeply. I want a divorce. The words landed like an explosion. Grant's face twisted. Claire, don't do this. We are done, she said. She turned to Harrison. And I want everything documented legally. I want protection. I want my freedom. You'll have all of it, he said without hesitation. Grant stumbled backward, almost colliding with a chair. Claire, don't destroy me like this. You destroyed yourself. Her voice was cold. Sharp. True, you humiliated me in front of your family. But today, Grant. She stepped back, letting the board see every inch of her strength. You humiliated yourself in front of your empire. Grant's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. And Claire, a woman who had entered the Holloway family, as quiet, meek, and eager to please, walked out of the boardroom with her father beside her, leaving the Holloways to drown in the ruins they built. The elevator doors slid shut behind Claire and Harrison, sealing off the chaos of the boardroom like a chamber finally relieved of its poison. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't heavy, it was restorative. Claire leaned lightly against the mirrored wall, breathing slowly, letting her racing pulse settle. Harrison watched her with quiet pride. You handled yourself with more grace than anyone in that room deserved. Claire swallowed, emotion tightening her throat. I felt like I was shaking the whole time. You didn't show it, Harrison said. And even if you had, strength isn't measured by how steady your voice is. It's measured by the truth inside it. The elevator descended smoothly, the city skyline emerging through the glass panel behind them, New York glittering like a field of diamonds, oblivious to the destruction happening inside the Holloway Empire. Claire exhaled deeply. So, what happens now? Now, Harrison said, we rebuild your life not as someone's wife, not as someone's afterthought, as yourself. The elevator chimed, opening into the lobby. Cameras flashed outside the revolving doors, paparazzi already catching wind of a corporate scandal. Security blocked them from entering. But Claire still stiffened. They're here for the Holloways, Harrison assured her. Not you. But a sinking realization hit her. Once the story goes public, I'll be dragged into it. Harrison placed a reassuring hand on her back. Only if you let them define your story, and we won't. Back at the Ritz-Carlton penthouse, Claire slipped off her coat and sank onto the sofa. The quiet was soothing, but her mind buzzed with leftover adrenaline. Everything in her life had changed in less than 24 hours. A knock sounded at the door. Claire tensed, but Harrison checked the peephole and relaxed. "It's someone I asked to come," he said. He opened the door to reveal Julia Morales, Claire's supervisor from the event studio. Julia, warm and sharp-eyed, stepped in holding 2 cups of Starbucks coffee. "I came as soon as I heard," Julia said, setting the coffees down before pulling Claire into a tight hug. "You okay? I saw the news alerts. Something big is happening at Holloway Capital." Claire stiffened. "You saw it already?" "Oh, honey," Julia said, smoothing Claire's hair the way a big sister would. "You're trending." Claire's stomach dropped. "Trending?" Julia lifted her phone. Headlines flashed across the screen. Holloway Capital, under investigation, sources say internal leaked files involved. Empire at risk. Grant Holloway accused of corporate misconduct. Who is Claire Whitmore? The wife at the center of the storm. Claire pressed a hand to her forehead. "This is too much." "Len." "No." Julia corrected gently. "It's your moment if you choose to take it." Claire blinked. "My moment?" Julia nodded. "You've been dimmed for years. People at work have noticed how quiet you are, how careful you are. But today, you stood up to a wealthy, powerful family in front of their entire board." She smiled proudly. "The world needs to hear that story." Claire hesitated. "I don't want to be famous." Julia laughed. "Good. Real strength isn't loud. It's honest." "No." Harrison stepped beside them. "Julia has a proposal for you." Claire looked at her supervisor. "A proposal?" Julia pulled a folder from her bag. "We're launching a nonprofit design initiative next year, projects for shelters, community centers, youth programs. We need someone with your heart, your eye, your kindness. And now," she glanced knowingly at Claire, "your story." Claire's chest tightened with something warm, hopeful. "But I'm just a junior designer." Julia shook her head. "Not anymore. Harrison will sponsor the program, and I want you as the creative lead." Claire stared at her. "Me?" "You," Julia repeated, smiling. For the first time in what felt like forever, Claire let the possibility sink in. A life beyond the Holloways. A future she chose. A version of herself she had never dared imagine. And as she looked between her father and the supervisor who believed in her long before she believed in herself, Claire felt it, not revenge, not triumph, but rebirth. She was rising. Slowly, surely, unstoppably. Morning sunlight spilled through the penthouse windows like warm gold, washing over the sleek marble floors and glittering off the skyscrapers below. Claire sat curled on the sofa, hands wrapped around the Starbucks cup Julia had brought, watching the city inhale and exhale with its usual holiday rhythm. Except today, Manhattan was buzzing with something else. Her story, or rather Grant's downfall. Harrison stood near the window, phone pressed to his ear, voice low but sharp. "Yes. Proceed with the audit. No, do not delay the press release. Thank you." He hung up and turned toward her. "You're trending again," he said gently. Claire's eyebrows lifted. "Is that good or bad?" "Both," Harrison admitted. "But that's why you must choose what to do next, Claire. The narrative is forming with or without you." Claire exhaled a shaky breath. "I don't want to be seen as a victim." "Oh, you're not," Harrison said. "You're a survivor. And survivors get to define what comes after." She nodded slowly. For years, she had been afraid to speak. Afraid to stand up. Afraid to be seen. But the woman she was last night was gone, left on the frozen steps of the Holloway townhouse. A soft alert chimed from her phone. Claire hesitated before looking. 50+ missed calls. From Grant. From Margaret. From unknown numbers, reporters, she guessed. She placed the phone face down. "I'm not ready to hear from them," she whispered. "You won't have to," Harrison said. "We can block them." Claire shook her head. "No. I need to hear what they say. I need time to breathe first." Harrison nodded with respect. He wasn't here to shield her, he was here to support her choices. By noon, the news cycle hit its peak. Julia had turned on the TV at low volume, letting the reports blend into the background like distant thunder. Federal investigation underway. Sources confirm corporate misconduct. Grant Holloway accused of internal leaks. Claire watched quietly. She expected to feel vindicated, but instead she felt something different. Release. Freedom. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth finally coming into the light. The elevator dinged. Claire looked up, startled. A familiar tall figure stepped into the penthouse. Avon Carter, her father's close friend. A soft-spoken but confident CEO who often consulted on charity initiatives. She had met him briefly at a fundraiser 2 years ago before her world became small. "Hope I'm not interrupting," Evan said, offering a warm smile. Claire blinked. "Evan, what are you doing here?" "I asked him to join us," Harrison explained. "He's overseeing some of the non-profit partnerships Julia mentioned." Evan stepped closer, eyes steady on Claire. "Your father told me what happened. I'm truly sorry you went through all that." Claire flushed slightly but nodded. "Thank you. I also came because I believe your story matters," Evan continued. "Not as fodder for tabloids, but as a reminder that quiet people often carry the heaviest storms." The way he said it, gentle, respectful, made her chest warm. "We're launching a national program for community arts next year," Evan explained. "Murals, shelters, design projects for safe spaces. Your vision could lead it." 1. Claire's mouth parted. "Me? Lead it?" "Yes," he said firmly. "People want authenticity, heart, humanity. You have all of that." Her face softened. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it," Evan replied. "I will," Claire whispered. Their eyes held for a moment longer than politeness required. Harrison noticed. Julia noticed. Claire definitely noticed. And for the first time since her marriage began to crumble, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Possibility. Then Claire's phone buzzed again. Not with a call, but with a video message from an unknown number. Harrison frowned. "Don't open it if it's from the Holloways." But Claire's gut told her this wasn't from Margaret or Grant. She tapped play, and the image that appeared on screen made her blood run cold. It was Sienna Blake, recorded last night, standing in the Holloway kitchen, whispering into her phone. "Everything's ready. When Margaret gives the signal, blame it all on Claire." Claire's hand flew to her mouth. She replayed it twice, heart pounding faster each time. Someone inside the Holloway house had filmed the truth and sent it to her. Evan stepped forward. "Claire, who sent that?" She shook her head, stunned. "I don't know, but whoever they are, they just gave us the missing piece." Harrison smiled, the kind of smile that promised justice. Claire didn't rise alone. Now the world would watch her rise higher. For a long moment, no one in the penthouse breathed. The only sound came from the soft hum of the heater and the faint noise of Manhattan far below. Claire held the phone like it was a live fuse, her pulse hammering in her ears. Sienna's voice repeated in her mind. "When Margaret gives the signal, blame it all on Claire." She swallowed hard. "Dad, this video, it proves everything." Harrison stepped closer, his expression sharpening. He took the phone gently from her hands, replaying the clip with a level of controlled fury Claire had never seen in him. "This," he said quietly, "changes everything." Julia leaned forward from the kitchen counter, eyes wide. Who would have recorded her? Evan crossed his arms, thoughtful. Someone inside the Holloway house. Someone who didn't like what they saw last night. Claire's mind rifled through the faces, staff, relatives, guests, everyone who had watched her humiliation. The memory made her stomach twist. "What if it's a trap?" she whispered. Harrison shook his head. "No. Sienna didn't know she was being filmed. That's genuine." "How do you know?" Claire asked. He looked at her with fatherly certainty. "Because I've spent decades reading liars. And that woman, she thought she was safe." Claire ran a hand through her hair, pacing slowly. "What do we do now?" Harrison's eyes glinted with a strategist's instinct. "We use it." Evan nodded, already stepping into problem-solving mode. "This video proves premeditated manipulation. It undermines any narrative the Holloways try to spin, especially about your instability." "Huh." I still can't believe they did that to me, Claire whispered, voice cracking. They wanted to destroy me. Correction, Julia said gently. They tried to destroy you. But they failed. And now you have something they can't mimic: truth. Claire's throat tightened. The truth. It had almost cost her everything. And now it might save her. Harrison placed a hand on her shoulder. Claire, I want you to be the one to decide how we use this. Her breath hitched. Me? Yes, he said. You've been silenced for years. Not anymore. Not ever again. This is your voice now. Evan leaned against the marble island. There are 3 options. Claire blinked. 3. 1, Evan said, raising a finger. Release it to the board. Quietly. Let them bury the Holloways from within. 2, Julia added. Leak it to the media. Let the world see exactly how they treat people. Harrison stepped closer. And 3, save it for the divorce proceedings. This would give you full protection, full alimony, full credibility. Claire swallowed, overwhelmed. What do you think I should do? All 3 looked at her. You tell us, Harrison said softly. What outcome gives you peace? Claire closed her eyes. She saw 3 images. Grant smirking beside Sienna at the dinner table. Margaret whispering orders like a general at war. Her own hands shaking as they forced her out the door. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't the woman they bullied last night. I want the board to have it, she said, voice steady. They need to know the truth first. And then, if the Holloways try to lie publicly, I'll release the video myself. Julia broke into a proud smile. That's strength. But Claire wasn't finished. And Dad, she added, I want it used in the divorce too. I won't let them twist anything ever again. Harrison nodded with approval. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Just then, Claire's phone chimed again. A new text. From an unknown number. She opened it and her heart dropped. I did the right thing sending you that video. But you need to know, they're planning something else. Be careful. No name. No hint. Just a warning. Claire looked up, fear and fire warring inside her chest. Dad, Evan, Julia, someone inside that house is helping me. Evan frowned. And someone else in that house is still trying to hurt you. Harrison stepped in front of her, protective, unwavering. Let them try, he said. They have no idea who they're dealing with now. The warning text sat on Claire's screen like a ticking clock. Someone inside the Holloway house wasn't just remorseful, they were afraid. And if they were afraid, it meant the Holloways were preparing their counterattack. Claire paced the penthouse living room, her pulse rising with each step. Dad, what could they possibly plan now that everything's coming out? Desperate people make desperate moves, Harrison replied, folding his arms. And the Holloways are nothing, if not desperate. Julia stepped closer. This feels personal. Someone in that house has seen something. Evan leaned against the counter, thoughtful. Or someone is trying to change sides before the ship sinks. Claire stopped pacing. We need to find out who sent that message. Harrison shook his head. It doesn't matter who it is. What matters is the timing. They're warning you because whatever Margaret is planning, it's happening today. Julia's phone buzzed. She glanced down, eyes widening. You're not going to believe this. She turned the screen toward them. A new headline flashed across a reputable financial news site. Holloway family denies allegations, claims. Emotional breakdown sparked false accusations. Claire's breath caught. No, they wouldn't. But they had. Grant's face appeared next to the headline, looking solemn and victimized, an expression she recognized too well. He had used that same expression to gaslight her for years. Julia scrolled. They're saying you invented everything because of unresolved mental health struggles. Claire's throat tightened. They're calling me unstable. Again. Harrison's expression hardened into steel. Enough. This ends now. He pulled out his phone and made a call. His tone was calm, but every word was edged with authority. This is Harrison Whitmore. Release the document packet. He ended the call. Claire stared at him. Dad, what did you just do? He tapped the folder on the table. I made sure the board and the SEC receive everything we've collected on the Holloways. They won't be able to twist anything now. Evan nodded in approval. Once that information hits official channels, The Holloways won't have time to smear Claire. They'll be too busy scrambling to save themselves. Claire exhaled slowly. Relief washed through her, but beneath it was lingering fear. Fear of what the Holloways might do before the truth closed in on them. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Margaret is panicking. She's blaming Sienna. You should see this. Then a video file appeared. Claire tapped play with shaking hands. The footage showed the Holloway living room last night's decor still in place. Margaret's voice rang out, sharp and cutting. You destroyed everything, she screamed. You let her get the upper hand. You and that useless son of mine. Sienna fired back, furious. This isn't my fault. Grant's the one who gave me the files. Grant lunged toward her. You were supposed to be discreet. Sienna shoved him. You told me she wouldn't fight back. Margaret stepped forward, venom dripping from her voice. Fix it, or I will make sure your career burns before ours does. No. The video ended abruptly. Claire stared at the screen, pulse pounding. The Holloways were officially imploding, and someone was feeding her evidence of every crack. Julia let out a low whistle. Wow. They're eating each other alive. Evan shook his head. This is what guilt looks like. Harrison placed a hand on Claire's shoulder. You have everything you need. This is irrefutable proof. They can't smear you anymore. 1. Claire felt her knees weaken not from fear, but from the weight lifting off her shoulders after years of being silenced. They can't hurt me anymore, she whispered. No, Harrison agreed softly. But that's not the ending. Claire looked up, confused. It's not? Not yet, he said. The world has seen them fall. Now it's time for the world to see you rise. Claire drew in a steady breath. For the first time, she didn't just believe it. She was ready. The next 48 hours swept through Manhattan like a storm. News anchors scrambled for updates. Financial journalists dug deeper into the Holloway scandal. Social media erupted with theories, sympathy, outrage, and applause for Claire, some calling her the silent wife who finally spoke. But Claire didn't spend those days glued to the headlines. She spent them rebuilding herself. Harrison insisted she stay at the Ritz-Carlton penthouse until the legal and corporate dust settled. Julia visited daily with project documents, ideas, and encouragement. Evan met with her each afternoon to discuss the nonprofit initiative, and somehow, those meetings became the calmest part of her day. Now, on the third morning since everything exploded, Claire sat at the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling window, sipping tea while the city glittered below. She wore soft beige loungewear, not designer, not curated, just comfortable. Julia arrived first, bursting through the door with her usual whirlwind of energy. Okay, she announced, dropping her tote on the counter. The world is officially on your side today. Every outlet is running stories about your courage. Some are even calling you a role model. Claire nearly choked on her tea. Me? A role model? Absolutely, Julia said. You confronted a toxic family empire, stood up for yourself, and helped expose corruption. People are inspired. 1. Claire tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, embarrassed. I didn't plan any of that. Exactly, Julia said with a grin. That's why they love you. Harrison entered from the hallway, dressed in a crisp navy suit. Expression unreadable. Press conference is set for tomorrow morning, he said. The board requested your presence. Claire stiffened. Me? Why would they want me there? Because your account matters, Harrison said. They want the truth from the person who lived it. Vin. Her throat tightened. I'm not a public speaker. I know, Harrison replied gently, but you are a truth teller, and that's more important. Evan arrived moments later, carrying a folder and giving Claire a warm smile that somehow eased her nerves instantly. You look more grounded today, he said softly. I feel different, she admitted. Good, he said, because I have something to show you. He opened the folder and slid a portfolio toward her. Inside were mock-ups, sketches, community proposals, donor commitments, pages filled with ideas for shelters, youth centers, arts programs, and public installations. These are your ideas, Evan said. From your old notebooks. Julia found them in your desk drawer. Claire blinked. I didn't think anyone read those. We did, Evan replied. And they're brilliant. This, he gestured to the folder, is what your future can look like. Not the Holloway name, not the marriage that caged you. You. High. Emotions swelled in her chest, soft, fragile, overwhelming. I didn't think I had anything left to offer, Claire whispered. Evan shook his head. You have more than you know. Harrison stepped closer. Claire, listen. For years, you lived your life shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's shadow. Now you have the chance to choose your own horizon. Claire pressed a hand to her heart. I want to do it. I want to lead the program. I want my work to matter. Julia clapped. Yes, that's what we needed to hear. Just then, Claire's phone buzzed. But this time, it wasn't a warning. It wasn't fear. It wasn't the Holloways. It was a message from the National Arts Foundation that Evan had contacted. We would like to feature Claire Whitmore as a keynote speaker for our Spring Impact Forum. Her stomach flipped. A keynote speaker? That's huge. Evan smiled. You deserve huge. Claire read the message again, more slowly this time. For the first time in her life, she felt momentum moving toward her instead of against her. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was ascending. The morning of the press conference arrived with a soft, pearly light over Manhattan, quiet, almost reverent. As if the city itself understood what was about to happen. Claire stood in front of the Ritz-Carlton penthouse mirror, smoothing the front of the ivory blouse Julia had picked for her. No glitter, no theatrics, just a woman finally stepping into her truth. Her hands trembled slightly. Old habits, old fears. But beneath the trembling, there was something stronger. Certainty. When Harrison entered the room, he paused in the doorway, pride written openly across his features. You look like yourself again, he said. Claire turned, surprised by the emotion in her chest. It's been a long time since I even recognized myself. You're here now, he said softly. And today, the world will see that too. Mo? The conference took place at the Holloway Capital headquarters, the same building where Claire had been dismissed, ignored, minimized. But today, the energy was different. Security stood tall. Press waited outside in clusters. Board members gathered inside with an air of grim responsibility. Claire walked through the revolving doors beside her father. Evan and Julia followed close behind, offering silent encouragement. As she stepped inside the boardroom, every head turned. But not with disdain, not with judgment, with respect. The chairwoman of the board, a composed woman named Eleanor Westbrook, gestured for Claire to join her at the front. Thank you for being here, Miss Whitmore, Eleanor said. Your presence is essential. Claire nodded, throat tight but steady. I'm ready. Reporters filled the back rows as cameras flashed. Eleanor began. We are here to address the misconduct within Holloway Capital, and we want transparency. Today, Miss Claire Whitmore will speak first. Claire stepped forward. It felt like stepping off a cliff and landing on solid ground. She inhaled slowly. My name is Claire Whitmore, she began. For years, I believed I wasn't enough because I was told I wasn't. By the people who should have protected me. She paused, letting the weight settle. I was humiliated, gaslit, blamed. And when their empire started to fall, they tried to use my mental health as their shield. Reporters leaned forward. But the truth always finds the light. Last night, a recording surfaced, proving that my humiliation was orchestrated. I was never unstable. I was never the problem. She lifted her chin. I was a target. A ripple of emotion passed through the boardroom. And now, Claire continued, voice warm but unwavering, I choose not to be defined by that pain or by the people who caused it. I am stepping into something new. She glanced back at Julia and Evan, two pillars now forming the foundation of her next chapter. I will be leading a national nonprofit design initiative dedicated to rebuilding safe spaces for women and youth across the country. I choose to heal. I choose to create. I choose to rise. A hush fell across the room, one woven from awe. Eleanor stepped forward. Thank you, Miss Whitmore. Your courage is extraordinary. Maifru. Then came the final blow, not from Claire, not from Harrison, but from the board itself. We hereby vote, Eleanor announced, to remove Grant Holloway from all leadership positions effective immediately, pending federal investigation. A reporter whispered, he's finished. Claire felt a tremor of final closure, clean, powerful, righteous. Justice wasn't loud. Justice was quiet and absolute. Hours later, as the sun began to set, Claire stood on the terrace of the Ritz penthouse, overlooking the shimmering skyline. Evan joined her, hands tucked in his pockets. "You did something remarkable today," he said. "I just told the truth," Claire replied softly. "Sometimes," Evan said, stepping closer, "that's the most remarkable thing a person can do." Their eyes met, warm, gentle, open. For once, Claire didn't look away. A knock sounded behind them. Harrison appeared in the doorway, smiling. "Ready for dinner?" he asked. Claire nodded. But before following him inside, she took one last look at the city, once a place where she felt lost, small, invisible. Now, it was a place she was finally ready to belong to. And as she stepped back inside, surrounded by the people who believed in her, one truth settled into her bones. In finally choosing herself, she had won everything the Holloways tried to take. So, that's where our story finally closes. My wonderful friends, and if you're still here with me at this moment, it tells me something. Something in this journey touched your heart in a way that words alone can't explain. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it whispered that you deserve better. Maybe it showed you that even the quietest person can rise when the world expects them to fall. The truth is, life will always give us moments that break us, but as Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Claire's pain didn't stop her. It shaped her. And that's a reminder for all of us. You are allowed to walk away from what hurts and walk toward what heals. If this story made you feel seen, understood, or a little less alone tonight, then stay with us. Like, share, and subscribe so we can keep growing this community, a place where real emotions matter, where dignity wins, and where healing is part of the journey. Thank you for being here. Really. Let's keep walking forward together.